Well, it was a big decision because I'd been a judge for 18 years and I get asked a lot, why are you running for Congress? So I'll start with the first part and with the second part. But when I was contemplating whether to get in this race, I traveled around my district and talked to a lot of people. And one common theme arose again and again, and that is people are really hurting and they're angry and they feel disengaged and they feel like their elected representative and their government really isn't listening to them. And as I have a proven record as chief judge of bringing people together and getting things done. And a couple examples of that is I was able to start the first veterans court in our state. It helps troubled veterans get back on their feet. It's a problem-solving court. It is something that restorative justice program, something that I truly believe in and was a statewide leader on as a judge. And now this court has saved hundreds of veterans. It has a very low recidivism or reoffending rate. I did talk to a couple of veterans that had been through that court just last week. And separately, they told me they were Vietnam-era veterans. They told me that that court saved their lives, that it was the first time they thought someone really listened to them and believed in them and what they were going through. And another program I was able to start was a mandatory foreclosure mediation program during the terrible foreclosure crisis. I had some housing advocates from Land of Lincoln come to me, and we decided to start this program. And we got the banks to the table and negotiated this program. We have it up and running, and now if a homeowner in Madison and Bond counties, if they're being foreclosed upon, they get notice of this program. If they opt into the programs, the banks have to come to the table and negotiate. We are up to 130 homes the last time I checked our stats being saved because of this program. So again, it's a record of just bringing every aspect of an issue together and getting things done. And also as a judge, I heard thousands of cases, and I've looked at all issues and sides of an issue and have come to a conclusion in a deliberative and common sense manner. And I think that's a skill set that's gravely needed in Washington, D.C. today. And we, heard what's going on there is just, and having been a judge, I think I know a little bit about what's fair and just. And what's been going on in D.C. today is not fair and just, from the sequestration to the shutdown to the failure to even consider raising the minimum wage, to letting these people, failure to help the people that are long-term chronically unemployed and relying on those benefits. But I haven't, when I've traveled around our district, I haven't just heard, despair. I've also heard and seen a lot of hope. We have a lot going on in our district that we could really grow jobs right here in our district, and that's what really people want. They want good jobs, they want decent health care, and they want to send their kids to decent schools. And we have some great apprenticeship programs going on, and I think if we build and expand on those with our local labor and also our great high schools and great community colleges, we could really create these children graduating from these programs highly technologically skilled and savvy. And some good things are going on in Springfield. When I came here a few months ago, I traveled around and went to the Urban League and saw some of the things that were happening in Springfield in some blighted areas. There are construction projects going on that homes are being rebuilt, and people are becoming first-time home buyers also in these blighted areas. I think we can expand on those types of programs with good PLAs and prevailing wage jobs, replicate that throughout our district. I know in Madison and Venice, in Madison County, a whole neighborhood was built using this concept in a blighted area, and they brought in blue and green, labor, and made these structures environmentally sound. And blue and green.
Oh, green. And a PLA is a project labor agreement?
Yes.
So it's union wages?
Yes.
So that is
sure. Anyway, so I think that was exciting. I think also I've talked to some young entrepreneurs, one that teaches an entrepreneurship class in Champaign-Urbana, and I think if we join, these types of young individuals and join with our local universities that are great in this area, draw them out into the community and join with our local businesses, we can create some good, innovative jobs right here in our district. And I'll end really with the last reason of why I'm running for Congress, and it's my children. They really are my inspiration. I sent them both to public schools in Troy, Illinois, and they both graduated, and I'm very proud of them. They're both dedicating their lives to public service. My daughter is a senior at St. Louis U, and she started her first student teaching job in the district in Collinsville, and she went on her first job interview today in the district, and I said, I have an interview today too. She was really nervous. I'm really nervous too. But I'm very proud of her. She wants to be a middle school teacher because she said that's when she struggled the most as a child. And my son, I sent him to Triad too. He was a great student. He was valedictorian. He was a college athlete. He was quarterback. He went on to Cornell University and had a great college career there. And when I was contemplating whether to get in this race, instead of going to New York City, like a lot of his friends did, and earn a lot of money, he chose to serve his country, and he enlisted in the Army. So when I was contemplating whether to get in this race, I had the honor and privilege of seeing him be sworn in as a second lieutenant. Now, everyone knows by my getting in this race, I will be personally and professionally excoriated. My record as a judge that I'm very proud of, that I built up for 18 years, will be twisted and trashed. I know that. But when I saw him be sworn in as a second lieutenant, I saw that he wasn't afraid to serve his country, so I shouldn't be afraid to serve mine. So I came back and resigned and got in this race in the spring. I'm fast forward, my son now is a Ranger. I had the honor and privilege of pinning the Ranger tab on him. And now he is deployed. It's been, I think, 30 days now. He's in Kuwait. He is a platoon leader of a rapid response force assigned to Army Central Command. So I am very proud of him. I will continue to draw inspiration from him because I know I'll have probably some dark days and difficult days being a candidate in a congressional race, but it won't be half of what he's going through. So.
Why did you choose to start with Congress to jump in, as opposed to another office? Just out of curiosity.
Well, it was really difficult. I had been a judge for a long time, and I had just won retention, but the policy changes I was able to institute as chief judge really got me interested in really expanding my role of public service. When I saw this opportunity, I thought, just take this leap. My children are grown. They've taken their professional, paths, and I feel very blessed that I have been able to find my path in life, and that is I like to help people. I do. I like to improve their lives. I think we've done a lot of good work in Madison County, and I think I'm a decent communicator, so that's the path that I chose.
Reductions in the size of the military is in the news today. What are your thoughts on the size of the military? Well,
I think that we need to take, again, a very deliberative, slow, common sense effort. And we need to keep our nation safe and our allies safe. And I, of course, have a personal stake with my son being deployed over there in Kuwait. So I think we need to... if there is going to be any type of reduction, again, it needs to have all aspects of our world safety in mind, but also, if there are some cuts that need to be done, they'll have to be on the table and we'll look at them, but not in a broad-based,
So you're not on board with the Defense Secretary at this point?
I would say at this point I would study this issue a little more and see, because I know it just came out. So.
Okay. I mean, it's interesting that in your race, we are in the gamut. I'm not sure exactly where Bellwin is. We know where Green is. He wants all bases across the overseas closed and everybody brought home. Where are you on that what's that word?
Continuum.
Continuum, thank you. Joan's
Well,
a smart one here, yeah.
Well, I do believe that, I think that Secretary Kerry has been very cautious, but also very optimistic on our, the world stage. But we can't, I think just a broad base pulling out all our troops of everywhere is not a wise course to take. We, haven't had an attack on our soil since 9/11. I think I think we have a very strong military. I'm proud of our military. I'm proud of my son serving in our military.
How old is he now?
He is 25. He turned 25 when he was deployed.
And just about you getting into this race, I know that you are the choice of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee or the choice of Senator Durbin. I think you visited those people in Washington as you were making your decision, if I'm correct. So, the other side loves to mention Pelosi. I don't know if you met her. How much was it you getting in, and how much was it other people pushing you in, or where does that kind of come
Well,
from?
I've guided my own life for a long time. I had a reputation of being a very independent judge. So this choice was mine. I talked to a lot of people, I've talked to my family, and it was a process to determine to really just take this giant leap off this cliff, resign my job as a judge, and get into this race. So it was my decision alone.
I know that, again, in comparison to your opponents on health care, I just read the survey you sent in, and I'm putting a story together with. You are a little more careful. You're not saying Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act is wonderful. It's like, let's examine things and look where they are, whereas you have two people who are for at least a universal health care plan. Where are you on this continuum? And how do you implement it, given what we have now is a Republican-led House?
This issue I've traveled around our district. One thing and talked to a lot of people again, because I like to hear what they have to say. It's new. The rollout, we all know, was abysmal. So right now, we'll see what works and what doesn't work. That's where I'm from. That's what I've done as a judge. You don't take a hike and shut down the government because you don't like this law. And I know just a couple days ago, I read that the Governors Association, Republican and Democrat alike, said the ACA is here to stay in one form or another. Traveling around, I know that people do like that they're on their parents' health care, a lot of students, and the parents like that too till they're 26. And also some savings for senior prescription medication, and also the no prejudice or discrimination against pre-existing conditions. So they do like that aspect. I did just have one young man when I was talking to some young people in Champaign, and he had suffered from a terrible blood-borne staph infection, and it was very serious, and he went in the hospital for 6 days, and he said, ACA saved my life. I would not have gone to the hospital if I didn't have health care. So it's just gathering and listening and seeing how it plays out, and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work.
You talked a little bit about, you alluded to job creation.
Yes.
A little bit ago.
Yes.
Talk to us about your plan or how you would intend to tackle that.
Well, I think there's some great things going on. I think with just what Senator Durbin announced yesterday with the joining with the digital projects that they have going on. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think we have great human resources here and great natural resources here with, we could go in the green jobs that I mentioned before with wind and solar and biofuels. And we have wonderful universities here. So I would be very excited and if I'm honored to be elected on really immediately starting to put together coalitions and groups to bring together the existing businesses we have now and building jobs, innovations right here. So I really am excited about that. And I've already talked about a little bit of the construction jobs. I know some mayors in other jurisdictions are looking into these blighted areas and really stimulating the local economy by rebuilding those homes in those areas. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's how I've always been as chief judge. I saw the Veterans Court in Buffalo that the judge started there when I was at a conference for mental health and justice. And I thought, we need to do that in Madison County. I came back, brought a coalition together of judges, prosecutor, defense attorneys, and the public defender, and also the Veterans Assistance Commissioner. And we put this court together without any taxpayer dollars, very rudimentarily. It started very, bare bones, but everybody was signed on. I was able to recruit a judge who was a combat veteran from Vietnam to be the presiding judge, an enlisted veteran. Also, the prosecutor was a veteran, the public defender was a veteran, and the first probation officer was a veteran. So they were invested in this program in the beginning, and now it's grown to be a model for our nation and won a national award, was nominated by Congressman John Shimkus for a national award and won that award. So,
is there a way to take that kind of effort and to Congress and somehow expand on it? I mean, how do you feel about how we take care of veterans?
Well, I think we're showing some improvements. They weren't, and as I think the Vietnam era veterans that I've talked to would agree. They had a very rough time when they came back home, and I remember even Judge Romani, who was our judge and was a combat veteran from Vietnam, when he talks about coming home from Vietnam, he still gets upset of the way he was treated because he thought, I was serving my country, I loved my country, and the way he was treated when he came back. So I think it's improving, but there's always ways we can improve. And I think, we shouldn't have ended the tax credits for businesses that hired veterans, and that ended. Right before I left as chief judge, I was talking to our Veterans Assistance Commissioner. There are veterans treatment centers, clinics in our district, but there's none in the southern part, in Edwardsville. And I think that would be another reason or an idea that we could grow and expand jobs, work with the veterans, get a broad-based, multifaceted veterans clinic, state-of-the-art, built in our district. I think that, again, would help stimulate the economy, bring some jobs in, and help our veterans at the same time.
Where do they go now?
They go in Madison County. I know a lot of them go across the river to Johnny Cochran, and we have volunteer drivers. Yes.
You spoke about Congressman Shimkus. I'm sure you don't agree with him on necessarily all things. He's made a name for himself in climate change and energy policy. Where are you on climate change and energy policy? Are you, one of your opponents, actually all of them, I think, on the Republicans say, Keystone XL pipeline, do it now. Let's not hurt coal with new regulations coming in. So, climate change real, and what policy would you want to do about it?
Absolutely, climate change is real. I mean, you can't deny 30-year trends of scientific evidence, and I did, when we saw, because I think we've all seen these naysayers, because it's been cold out, that climate change doesn't exist. Not true. It does. And I think we need to, of course, we need to be cognizant of job growth, but also we need to regulate so we have clean air and clean water. When I was at St. Louis U, I interned for Missouri Public Interest Research Group, that when those Superfund sites, and became very aware of how precious our water is and our air is. So, of course, I'd not a climate change denier at all. It exists, and we need to do something about it.
And what about when Mr. Congressman Davis was here, he talked a lot about coal-fired plants and how there were some regulations coming along that could end any new coal plants being opened anywhere in the country, which of course hurts the Southern Illinois economy. Your thoughts on that? Should there be new regulation or expanded regulation on emissions?
Well, we need to be a common sense regulation on emissions. I mean, what I hear, and I think there is a common ground you can find. I mean, between growing jobs and also protecting our environment. So it would be a common sense that I would look at and have to look at it, see where we stand, and then go from there.
Well, there was a cap and trade, and I'm not sure if that's what people call the carbon tax, but are you for any of those things in particular?
No, I think that we need to again, we have great natural resources and we have great human resources in our district. Let's build a community, coalitions together, expand on these types of programs and see where we stand. I think there's real solar, air, biofuels. I think there's real possibilities here. And the more I'm a candidate and listen to people and listen to their ideas and talk to people, the more that the ideas will expand. And
Congressman Davis worked a lot on the Farm Bill and is happy with the outcome. How do you see the Farm Bill the way it turned out?
Well, I say finally, because I've spoken to some farmers, and the uncertainty for a long time of not having a farm bill, and they deal with certainty, was troublesome and troubling for them. But now we finally have a farm bill. I'm pleased that we do. The SNAP reduction of benefits for children was not. Wasn't pleased with that. I think that just being out in our communities, people really are choosing between diapers and food. And even my daughter told me at Collinsville Middle School, where she first started student teaching, she said 60% of those children are on full government assistance or partial government assistance for meals. So we have a real poverty issue and problem that needs to be alleviated.
College affordability is an issue that's in the news.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about it.
Yeah. Yes.
How do we address that?
Well, I think we need to, first of all, expand our Pell Grants. I talked to the president of Wesleyan, and he said that's important to have cultural diversity and enrichment of his student body, to have the Pell Grants, and he was for those. So expand on those. And also, we know that they're saying that's the next bubble that's going to burst, is student debt, and address that. I know Senator Durbin had the Student Bill of Rights that I would support, and these predatory student loans. And I talked to a woman in Champaign-Urbana who was a public servant all her life, and she went to law school, and she was a public defender, and she did great work, public service work, and she made so little, because I know a lot of public defenders, they don't make a lot of money, and they do great work. So she got deferments from her loans, and now when she's she's retiring and looking at her golden years, she's looking at a few $100,000 of debt that shouldn't occur. There should be some type, and I know we talked about it in our forum, some voluntary national service, or if you're dedicating your life to public service, to get some type of continual deferment on your loans.
Just to clarify a point about, you talked about Springfield and housing, and I
Yes.
know our mayor, and I don't know if you met Mayor Houston.
I haven't.
Okay. I know when he ran, he talked about trying to make sure that they bulldoze a lot of, blind houses, abandoned houses, and I'm not exactly sure what the building program is. Do you know exactly what program you're talking about?
Well, yeah, I don't want to talk out of turn. I know two exist. Two programs in Springfield exist. Yes, and one by a pastor who is more of a long-term than home ownership, and then one, I believe, associated with the Urban League. So I think that is, bringing people together again and building on what's happened across the country and in Madison County, in Venice and Madison, which I've told you about. I think there's real opportunities to join with people and have people that.
How does this manifest itself? I mean, you get a grant from these people, or do they provide labor?
Sure. I think multi-agency. You can use IHA and use some, federal funding, maybe get some grants. What's out there? And that's what I did. As chief judge, we were able to build it first, and then the people came, like our Veterans Court. I refer to that, starting without any taxpayer dollars. Start a dialogue. I've always said this: communication and collaboration do not cost a dime.
Is it that HOPE program, like TSI HOPE or something? TSP HOPE, or?
Yes, it may be.
Not sure.
I think it is. I think it is. Yes.
Just another. I mean, you mentioned Madison County a lot, and of course, we have heard about Madison County. In so many forums, people call it the quote-unquote judicial hellhole because there are so many personal injury lawsuits that seem to end up there. You, as you talked about a little bit, hit as a judge from Madison County
Yes.
on this issue. How do you deal? What do you have to say about that issue?
Well, I find it ironic. When I first became chief in 2006, and that's when we, were designated by the Chamber of Commerce, and I started to talk to people and listen to what, reach across the aisle, what's going on, why, even if some believe that it's undeserved image, we have it. We need to change it. So I started reforms and programs. I wanted, reforms and efforts in Madison County that really worked and that we were recognized that worked. I wanted everyone to believe when they walked through those courthouse doors that they were going to get a fair shake. That was my goal. And so we started medical malpractice mediation. We started a committee. I traveled around the state with Republican and Democratic judges, because we were all as one. In Illinois, you first run partisan and then you run nonpartisan for retention. So, and we met with the Illinois Hospital Association, we met with the ISME, we met with doctors, and we came up with a program, mandatory mediation in malpractice cases, so that everyone was happy with and has been up and running. Now in Madison County, all our judges, most of our judges, are trained mediators. So at a certain point in these cases, they're mediated. We also started a lot of reforms, reducing the number of class action cases, making our court files more transparent, opening up court files, putting in parameters in place. We were one of the first pilot counties to bring cameras in the courtroom. I thought it was necessary for public to see what was going on in our courthouse. So we did a lot of reforms. We were recognized for those reforms. When I ran in 2012 for retention, me and two other judges were endorsed by the Illinois Civil Justice League, which is the chamber arm of the...
Ed Murnane endorsed you?
Yes, he did.
Goodness gracious.
And he said you could call him and he'll say that.
Okay.
So,
back to the farm bill.
so it's ironic that, we'll... Yeah.
Okay. On the farm bill, would you have voted for it in its final form, or would you not, or have you said?
I haven't said. I think the farmers needed the relief, but I'm very concerned about the reduction in SNAP benefits. So right now, I don't know how I would have voted.
A major project in Springfield is the rail relocation, which Senator Durbin has supported and others have supported, but it's going to require a lot of federal funds and support. How do you feel about high-speed rail and then the effort here to move the rail to 10th Street? Well,
I think that's an exciting effort to be able to bring, commerce into our community, and I know high-speed rail kind of went off the front pages and now is back on the front pages. So I'd certainly support an effort to bring that into our community. I think that it would be necessary. I think it'd be good for our community, not necessary, good for our community.
So you'd work for it?
I would work for that.
Fiscal issues are talked about a lot, and the trillions in debt that the country is. So what, do you have a plan to bring that down? Because if you're, for this and for that,
yes.
Where do you save?
Well, as chief judge, I could say in my community on a very much smaller scale, I was in charge of our budget, and we cut our budget, saved thousands and thousands of dollars. I knew it was important. I knew people in our community were tightening their belts, and we had to tighten our belts. But I also made sure a lot of our innovations and programs stayed in place. So we were able to find areas where you can cut but keep, I think, vital programs, especially some of the work we were doing with juveniles, with our juvenile court, and we have a lot of volunteer-based efforts too. Keep those in place. But also, again, there is, I know in D.C. there's a HEAP program with the Attorney Generals and U.S. attorneys, which is cracking down on fraud and abuse in our medical billing, Medicare and Medicaid, and they have saved billions of dollars now, going after people who are falsely billing and fraudulently billing. And I think those are types of efforts that we could build on and expand, and look how we can save these dollars. Now, I know it's a much larger scale than what I did in Madison County, but my point is, I am not afraid to tackle hard issues and not afraid to look at them and see where we could save some real money.
Well, beyond fraud and waste, any particular program that could stand a cut at this point?
Well, I don't think, again, we should use a butcher knife, perhaps maybe a scalpel. Let's see what works and what doesn't. You know that there'll be some programs that aren't necessary, or some part of a program that's wasteful and just unnecessary. And let's take a look at that and see what could be cut.
Well, you've been a candidate for a long time.
A long time.
Example at this point?
No, I don't have a specific example besides the HEAP program. Yeah.
What do you think about the minimum wage proposal, President Obama?
I'm absolutely for that. The more I'm in our community, as I said, that it's just crucial. I would bring incrementally, even the studies say, 2 to 5 million Americans out of poverty. In Illinois, 6 of the 10 people who are earning minimum wage are women, and many of them head of households. And again, I was at, I think, a community center in Decatur, and they really are choosing between diapers and food. And this is a problem that could really alleviate the pain that a lot of people are going through. So I would be for that, absolutely.
There's clearly the view out there of some that if you raise the minimum wage, and I think there's even some evidence from a recent federal report, you raise the minimum wage, you lose jobs.
Oh, the CBO report?
Yeah.
Well,
and certainly what a lot of people who talk about job creators will say they will create fewer jobs and hire fewer people.
Well, I don't think the CBO report exactly said that, and that was prospective. So, but people are really hurting. People are in poverty, and as I said, even in my daughter's school in Collinsville, that there are government-assisted meals. So that is an issue that needs to be addressed immediately, and raising the minimum wage would alleviate that.
Is that to $10.10?
10. Sure.
Okay. And speaking of school meals, the congressman whose seat you wish to take said that the rules are too restrictive on school lunches, and therefore a lot of healthy but not so tasty food is getting thrown away every day. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I'm about common sense reform. If that needs to be made, sure. But people are hurting anyway. We do, of course, have an obesity epidemic. But I think there would be ways to make these types of healthy foods a little more palatable to these children. It's new, so anything new, children aren't. Anybody doesn't particularly want to partake in. But yeah, I think we need to also focus on the real pain that people are hurting and can't even actually get a meal.
I know that. Well, both of your opponents, I assume, Mr. Bellin in particular, talks about, this is not the time for the party structure to pick our candidate. Why are you better than the physics professor who says he will bring a scientific perspective to things, or then there's Mr. Green who has different ideas?
I think my proven record of actually being a public servant and actually having proven results for the people that were honored to elect me to serve them. So that I would continue. And also, as I said earlier, being a judge, I'd listened to literally thousands of cases and listened to every issue and studied every issue and then came to conclusions over and over again. I am very result-oriented. I always have been as a public servant, and that's what I would bring to the table. I think that would be new and fresh, and that's why I think I'm the better candidate.
Are you a party insider? Do you believe?
I'm an independent person. I have always been an independent person. You could ask the people around me in Madison County, and had to make some tough decisions and tough choices. I am, honored to have the endorsement of Senator Durbin and, resources and endorsement of Emily's list. That means that they believe that I'm a good candidate.
Where do you stand on gun rights, guns in schools, the proliferation of guns in our society? Where do you think we're headed, and what would you do in Congress?
Well, yeah, this is an issue that I saw as a judge, and I think it's inextricably intertwined with our mental health crisis we have in our country. And I think closing what Senator Durbin and Senator Kirk were for, the common sense closing the loophole on gun shows, was a very rational approach to the gun violence and the burgeoning gun violence. I spoke to a woman, I think it was in the winter, who lost her father, was murdered. And it was a long time ago, and he was now getting paroled. And she is still devastated by what happened to her father. And she said the fact that this man who's getting out of prison on parole could get a gun at a gun show is just, she's just devastated by it. I also, right before I left as chief judge, convened a task force with Republicans and Democrats, legislators, and also people that work in our mental health community and our law enforcement community in Madison County to bring people together because, again, I said communication and collaboration don't cost anything because we have a lot of laws in Illinois already in relation to ownership of firearms and adjudicated mentally ill and having been convicted of domestic violence and other misdemeanors and felonies. So I think we should be able, we were going to start just getting that information out, letting just citizens know this is out there, this is what you can do, this is what is available, and going forth from there.
To circle back to the healthcare thing a little, because again, both of your opponents are for some sort of national health care. So was Dr. Gill, who ran against Rodney Davis last time. I assume you are not, and why are you not, and is that the best political place to be in a 50-50 district?
Well, I've always said this, and I say this a lot. If I always speak from my heart and what I believe, and if I do that and be able to sleep at night, lay my head down and sleep at night, I'll be fine. I think the ACA was a Herculean undertaking, and it has just started. It has just started. And as we all know, the rollout was abysmal, but people now are looking at it and signing on. And you hear some anecdotal evidence that my insurance rates go up. If that is trending that way for middle-class families in our area, then we need to fix it. And if some people are signing up, and the more that sign up, it becomes successful, then we need to see the successes. We need to see the failures, fix the failures, expand on the successes, and be a common sense and practical approach.
So I'm going to go back to guns again.
Yes.
Congress, after the Newport school calamity, Congress really didn't do anything. Do you think that there should be something done to protect schools, or do you think that we just have to rely on the common sense of local officials?
Well, I think that I spoke about previously. I think we do have a mental health crisis in this country. Let's try to address that. One thing we've done in Madison County, we also have a mental health court that is, people that are constantly being arrested for, it's a lot of misdemeanors like disorderly conduct. They go into this court and they have to, and this court is a very highly specialized court, but they have to do certain things and get treatment and take their medication, become, again, productive members of our society. So there's ways that we can address those types of issues and then go from there. But, in Illinois, if you're adjudicated mentally ill, you cannot own a FOID card. You can't have a firearm. And I think a lot of people weren't aware of that. So let's start there at information exchange there.
And I'll just circle back to the health one more, just to be sure. Do you have any view long-term if we should go to a universal type system, or are you going to wait and see on that?
Let's wait and see, and let's see what works and what doesn't work. I mean, yes.
How has Rodney Davis done during his time in office?
Well, I just think he, voted against the Pell Grants. He voted against the minimum wage. He voted, he called the extension of unemployment benefits for the chronically unemployed a distraction. So what I hear from people in our community is he's out of touch and, doesn't care about their needs.
You would argue that the hit the ground running thing worked well, because I know that our mayor, who is also a Republican, talks very highly of him. He knows all the levers in Washington, what we need, how to, and he talks about being on the farm committee, on the waterways committee, that kind of stuff. That how would you as a newcomer be able to patch into some of those same things to help local communities with just constituent service, given that you might be facing a Republican-led House also?
Well, I think it's just, again, a philosophical difference of I have had a history of really helping the people that elected me to serve them, and I truly believe in serving them. So whatever committee I would be on, I would be honored to serve in that committee and would also help, try to help the constituents that elected me there. My primary concern and effort would be helping the people in my district that I was honored to be elected by them.
Do you have a committee or committees that you want to be on?
I would be honored just to be there. I am interested, though, in, of course, judiciary and veterans issues and education. But I would be honored to be there and work on any committee.
And I know that, just a farm thing, ethanol policy continues to be a national debate. Where are you in that? Should subsidies go on, or required usage of ethanol, or should that end or taper off, or where?
Well, we have a lot of farmers that in our district, and they rely on the ethanol policy. But again, let's see if it's working, if it's growing jobs, if it's helping our community, and where the cost would be the drop off or not.
Again, that's an issue that you might have studied by now and had an opinion on, but apparently you don't.
Well, no, I support the ethanol policies.
We are winding down. We have about 3 minutes left. So
3 minutes.
Final question.
Social Security. The president, I guess, just took off the table.
Yeah, changed CPI.
Changes, but a lot of people think
he did.
that there will be needed changes to keep it solvent for younger folks. Your thoughts on what can be done? Are you open to raising the cap on income that people have to pay the Social Security tax on, or raising the age of retirement for some?
I would be against raising the age of retirement, and my grandparents came over here from Poland to work, and they worked at Hunter Meatpacking in East St. Louis along with my aunts and uncles, and I saw firsthand they relied on their Social Security. If you pay into this system, millions of our Americans rely on that for sustenance and to live. So I would do everything I can to protect Social Security, and then if I'm honored to be elected, look at long term.
So is raising the cap on income where you pay the Social Security tax, is that a possibility?
I wouldn't absolutely rule out that. I think, but right now, I'd be just for protecting Social Security, being against chain CPI, being against privatizing our Social Security, because our seniors would really be in trouble if we went that route.